like everything is working. All right, Naga Betsekesti. I'm just gonna make sure that everything is set. Naga Betsekesti. Oh, Matsotsogi Instagram Lokwe Biba. Again. Working. All right, Matsotsogi YouTube Biba. Right. Maulik, bonito este. All right. Half a day, todos hamzu bueno hudzong estigi nuevo na episode Fanatsu. Hungan. And so, ay, de mahaleng zuno hamzo todos. Inanu si Michael Luhan Bavacqua. I am your host once again, Michael Luhan Bavacqua. I have definitely missed hosting Fanatsu. I was on maternity leave. We didn't have episodes for a little while, but I am happy to be back. And one of the things, this is the ninth year that Fanatsu has been around. And I remember when Fanachu first started 9 years ago. Independent Guahan had just started as a decolonization outreach group, Guinigidza Guahan, and Manny Cruz, who was a graduate student at the University of Guam, had not yet gone off to become Dr. Manny Cruz. He had said, Miguel, you want to start like a podcast for independent Guahan? And I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure what a podcast is, but sure, let's do that. And we started Fanachu, a podcast for independent Guahan. The first podcast we recorded at Java Junction, a coffee shop, which no longer is in existence. It was at in Hagatnya. It did not survive the COVID pandemic, but Fanatsu now is going strong. It has gone through different producers, many different hosts over the years, but more than 350 episodes later. And one of the things that has been intriguing as Fanatsu has been around across these 9 years is to see how media has changed as we have kind of watched, because from 9 years ago to where people started mentioning sort of podcasting as something that they were getting into, and this idea we should start a podcast. Have you heard this podcast? To now podcasts becoming something in which, in the last election in the United States, podcasts played a huge role or a significant role in determining who won the presidential election. But then we also see that traditional media, quote unquote, mainstream media, big media, has been declining in recent years. We see that in the United States. We see that in the world. Do we see that in the Marianas as well? For example, in Guam, we can see how many TV stations are there in Guam? Aren't there TV stations in Guam that aren't even in Guam? There's like TV channels in Guam that are like broadcasting news in Guam, but then you watch them and you're like, hey, who are these people? Do these people even live in Guam that are reading the news? And so radio stations, you look around, the media landscape is changing. And sometimes we can look at that and we can lament and say, oh, malingu esti, something is being lost. But on the other hand, we can also look at that and say, is this a chance for something to be born that is better, that is more community focused, something that actually fills the gaps that those structures of media power that were bigger, that were corporate based, that were profit driven, that those things that they didn't attend to. And so that's why I'm very happy to have on this episode of Fanatsu, see Tomas Manglona Jr. Or wait, Tomas Manglona the second or Junior? Manu.
Same,
Masya.
same.
Okay, hunggan. See Tomas Manglona, who is somebody who has been living that life. He has been living sort of the media game in the Marianas for a few years now, and then last year he took the plunge and started Marianas Press. And it is a very interesting example of, creating community media. And so not relying on sort of the old legacy media, as we might call it, the media that's been around since 19 forgotten, the media that has been there since the time of our grandparents and great grandparents, but instead creating media that is new, which might learn the lessons, which might take advantage of what is out there today and might learn the lessons from the past. And so I'm very happy to be here with Tomas today for this episode of Fanachu, talking about Marianas Press, but also talking about what what the media landscape looks like in the Marianas today. Hey, sedus masi pari finatomo, Tomas.
Happy Suzus Masi for having me, and congrats to Fanachu on nearly a decade on the digital airwaves. Really, really excited to be part of the program. So thanks for the invite.
Oh no, Hagumas. Again, sometimes we get a bunch of listeners. Sometimes sometimes it's just my girlfriend listening. Hungan.
Hey, the most important person for you. So
Hungan. And so, Finetna and I want to ask you, because we're going to get into Marianas Press, we're going to get into those issues. Lo, Finetna, put favor, Cosino and introduce in Maisaha, can you introduce yourself, give us a little bit of your background?
yeah, so my name is Tomas Mangloña. I'm from the island of Rota. I wanted to be a journalist ever since I could understand what I was watching on television. I always share the story that I would wake up early as an elementary school student on Rhoda around 5 or 6 a.m. to watch Christian Amanpour on CNN. And on Rhoda, we got CNN International, so Christian had that time slot that I was always watching. And I describe it as my window to the outside world, right? Growing up on a small island, um, you wonder what's going on beyond the shores too. And so the news was my window, and I was just uh, so interested in what was happening outside in the world. And at some point, I started asking, why aren't we on the news? Where's Rhoda? Where's the islands, right? And that's what really kind of jump started me into this career of journalism, which I started a blog that was actually called Luta Pago Rhoda Today. I believe it's still up. I haven't checked. I haven't paid any of the website fees, so maybe it's down, but maybe you can see some of the old
All right.
articles.
Nanga Betzek, Nanga Betzek. Okay.
Okay, okay. I think I just triggered all the internet investigators to go find it. But I started just writing about my community on Rhoda, and I remember buying, I think it was like a $10 audio recorder from one of the shops in the village in Song Song, and I just started going to PTSA meetings at the high school. I started asking my friends, hey, would your parents like to be interviewed? What do they think about this? I started interviewing some of my classmates, and um, really that's what started my love for journalism is being able to write about my community. And that's the constant that has carried me all through now at the age of 27. Um, to continue this reporting here at home. Eventually, when I got the chance to go to Mount Carmel School on Saipan on a speech and debate scholarship, and it was there that I was picked up by the Marianas Variety. Lila, the publisher at the time, took notice of me and gave me my first real newspaper job. And then I was recruited to join the Saipan Tribune. And for the Guam viewers, you would appreciate a bit of a throwback. Um, Clint Rigel, who was the news director of Pacific News Center at the time, also took notice of me, reached out, and around that time in 2012 or so, there was a typhoon that hit Saipan, and PNC wanted someone to cover it, and I had a phone and a microphone and a tripod, and so I went at it. Um, and then shortly after that, through my reporting career in high school with the Saipan Tribune and PNC, I went on to pursue my bachelor's in media studies at the University of California at Berkeley. And it was there that I really got to cut my teeth. Berkeley, as you know, Miguel, having spent some time there as well, is a very interesting place. A lot of interesting things happen, protests basically every hour of the day. And so, as a young journalist, that provided a lot of opportunity to, engage and learn and make mistakes on the job, covering issues of free speech, covering issues even of Pacific Islander related issues as well. And I got to lead the Berkeley campus television station, which had at any given moment between 100 to 300 people in it to cover the Berkeley campus and community. And in that time, I also had the great opportunity to work and intern at ABC7 in San Francisco and covered pretty much everything as an intern. Did every job in the newsroom as I could. And after Cal, I went on to pursue my master's in journalism at Stanford University, where I had a multimedia focus. Um, and after Stanford, I went to New York, and I describe it as a hot summer because I ended up at ABC News and lived right there in Midtown, Broadway. And I was climbing this ladder that is traditionally thought as success, right? I was in one of the most major newsrooms. I could see the A-list anchors. I actually got to have two stories air nationally while I was there, but uh, towards the tail end of the internship, I just wasn't feeling happy, to be quite honest. And it was because I reminded myself of why I got into the business in the first place. It was to report on my community. And, there are many beautiful communities in the States, but I just didn't feel the same motivation. And so I think I might have disappointed a few people in my decision to move back home because, there was this mentality of success and what it looks like out in the States. But ultimately, I did decide to move home, and it was the best decision I made. This September, which is in a month, will be 4 years actually. And as most of your viewers might know me from on Guam, I was at KUAM for 3 years as the regional correspondent. I did my very best to build the regional network there and the regional audience there. And then I started Marianas Press last year. But I do want to just have a bit of a caveat. I know I'm not the first to do this, and I know I won't be the last. And I just want to honor all the journalists before me who've done this work. I think there might be an inclination sometimes when young people move back that all of a sudden this work is new and we're starting it and it's great because we're in it. But we come from a lineage of people who worked on this, and I'm just so happy to be, as they say, standing on the shoulders of giants to carry on this torch and the work of really informing our people so they can make good decisions and hold power to account as well. And so that's a bit of a brief timeline of my journey in journalism, but the constant in it and the whole reason why I started Marianas Press was because I wanted to write and report about my community. And right before I started Marianas Press in November last year, I went back and I looked at what I wrote in my undergrad and my graduate school applications. And I wrote in there that I wanted to start my own news company. So I knew that my younger self um, had that as the North Star. And so I kind of just reminded myself of why I went off to college, did what I did, and just kind of recenter, my purpose. And so I'm glad to be here 10 months in. Marianas Press has grown tremendously in that time. We have over 20,000 followers across our platforms, and our monthly views across social media are reaching around 8 million every month. And so, people always say, thanks for we follow your work. Thanks for what you're doing. But I throw it right back and say it doesn't matter what we produce or share if no one else is seeing it. So really, thank you to the followers. And I have some people who've been following my work since I was in middle school too, who've seen me grow into who I am now. And I have a lot more to learn, but I didn't want to just you know say that I'm not the first to do it, and I'm just happy to be here for the journey with this community.
Ay, de bonito, ano. Si Diyos mase. No, thank you for Zaho Historia Taekwondo. I love stories like that. Because I think there's so many I think what so many of the stories, of course, from the Marianas are stories of migration of people to the States, and then kind of the difficulties in coming home and coming back, how you can't come back for these reasons or that. And of course, there's always, maybe there's no work, maybe there's health issues, maybe there's this or maybe there's that. But I always love it though, when we also take the time to remember and celebrate, those who do come home, because we if we don't do it, who is going to do it? Like I imagine sometimes I imagine that if everyone keeps leaving, then what is Elon Musk going to make AI to do all the work for people in the Marianas? Like what is going to happen if everybody leaves? Like some of us, we need to come home. We need to come home and we need to take care of these things here. And so when you were talking about that, as I'm a middle-aged person with 5 kids now, and so of course I'm always thinking, I'm always reflecting on these things now. And so my oldest now, Sumahi, is 18 and is starting at University of Guam this month. And so I'm hoping then that when she decides to go off island, it gets easier for future generations to leave and come back, that they don't feel what people in the past felt, that you leave the islands and you can't come back. You leave the islands and then it's just slow. I guess I have to change my license plate to Arizona now, and I guess I have to love football team out here now, and I guess I'm a statesider now. I guess I'm Poasu Chamorro now. And so, but yeah, I'm hoping that in the future, and one of the things that I think helps make it easier is the way that media makes us connected, the way that current generations of those who are in the diaspora know what's happening more in the islands than they did in the past. They're more up to date. They feel more connected. And so it doesn't feel like when you get on a plane and you come back to the Marianas, whether for a work, for vacation, it doesn't feel like you're taking such a big step like it used to in the past. It feels easier because whether you're checking your Facebook feed or whether you're following people on Instagram, you feel more connected to the islands. And so, anyways, that's just my as my kids would call it, my bihu reflection
No, that's
there
so
from
true. And if I could just share, 50% of our audience at Marianas Press is not on in the CNMI. So I totally hear you on connecting with the diaspora, and happy to share. Marianas Press will be in Tacoma for the Labor Day games out there, and so we're looking forward to connecting with people who follow us from the states. And I get messages all the time, and we cover and we feature people who are out there in the states too, and so I really look forward to that. Yeah, so you're right on point.
Hi, Biba, Biba. And so I wanted to, again, I definitely remember when, again, the work in terms of connecting the Marianas media wise. I loved when you were at KOAM and you were kind of extending KOAM's media reach, so that there was kind of more regular coverage of what was happening in the Northern Islands. That was I always appreciated that because it's well, we do feel this in the Marianas, that the distance between the CNMI and Guam is felt politically, it's felt in terms of United Airlines ticket costs, it's felt in a lot of different ways, and it feels further or closer based on kind of how that media connection is too. Like if media coverage connects our issues or if it makes them different. Like does the coverage say that these are shared issues that we have, or is this a CNMI thing only? Is this just a Guam thing, right? And so I appreciated when you were at KOAM how having having it be regularly something that I would see on KOAM through Guam, covering the CNMI, making it feel like as somebody in Guam, I need to know what's happening in the CNMI, because if we believe in reunification, if we believe in reintegration, if we believe that we truly are one archipelago, then it starts with simple gestures, simple imagining like that. And so I definitely appreciated that. And so you shared a little bit about, um, actually, before we get to Marianas Press, though, I want to hear your thoughts, though, on the media landscape. So you worked at KOAM, I know that the CNMI lost a newspaper recently, and then in Guam, in the past few years, the PDN stopped their print edition. There's only one, daily print newspaper that's published, and so, we can see that the media landscape is definitely changing. And so I want to hear your thoughts as somebody who has worked in the more traditional media out here, also worked in media in the States. So you also have that experience too. But then you've also gone through the experience of starting your own media company, building it from sort of the ground up. And so what are your thoughts on kind of where media is at in the Marianas right now?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and don't feel the need to like expose yourself or call anyone out. Don't feel the need to do anything like that. I'm just kidding.
all right. Well, no, that's a very important question, and I get that a lot when I go around and speak to different people. I do want to say that Marianas Press really was launched, and the catalyst for it was very much the closure of the Saipan Tribune, my former employer, and actually three of the reporters that are working with Marianas Press are from the Tribune. One of them, my very good friend Mark Rabago, was the editor in its last few years. And so to see, I keep up with the media trends in the states, and the closures of local newspapers are nothing new, right? But to see it here at home, you kind of don't believe that it's happening right next door, right, or in your town. And I did shed a few tears when I heard about it because to lose any institution, especially one with a legacy like the Tribune's, is sad news. But out of it came Mariana's Press, and so that's a bit of the tie there. But in terms of the media landscape overall, I do believe that we are following some of the major trends, right? We're seeing a lot more individual-based voices come out, a lot of more independent voices come out of traditional media, and people wanting to trust an individual more rather than a network. And in our community, that works, right? People know who you are, who I am. We run into each other at the fiestas, at the store, and I think that's great. But some things that are of concern are, of course, um, just what the state of what that means for the state of journalism, right? In a influencer world, in a social media world, where are the guardrails, right? And we could have a whole other podcast about social media ownership and kind of what's and moderation. That's a whole different podcast. Um, but I do think democratizing information and its gathering is great for everyone, right? I'm an advocate of the First Amendment, and I stand by it. But I do believe while it's great, there are still some concerns around just verification of news, the integrity of news.
Oh no. Hello?
Accurate and fact based, or are you receiving it because it is something that can go viral and is not driven by fact based information and reporting? And this is something that Maria Ressa out of Rappler talks about in the Philippines, that a lie, spreads, I think, 10 times faster than the truth does. And so, what are the incentives, right, that drive news gathering? Are we considering what is a news story based solely on its newsworthiness and impact to the community, or based on how viral it can go or what we believe people would like to see and share because that translates to more ad dollars. And so recently, one of my professors at Stanford held a panel very much on this topic. And one of the things that came out was behave like an influencer, but act like a journalist, right? Um, and so, or I think like a journalist. And so, while we might while we might borrow some of the ways that we deliver information from in the digital age and influencer type ways that allow it to be seen broadly, we still have to remain at our core journalists, right? That the 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 methods of disseminating information haven't have changed, but the way we gather it in principle and should still remain the same at its core. You know, in a way that doesn't spread mis or disinformation. So yeah, that's my word salad answer of to say that it's very complicated to this day. Marianas Press is fully digital, but I am also constantly thinking about what is next, right? We've had these in media studies, you call them moral panics, right? First, it was like the fire. People were afraid of what this fire meant. Then it became part of the industry. And then maybe we can jump to television, right? We had people say television is horrible. You shouldn't watch television. And then, television, radio, and then now social media, this is horrible. You shouldn't be on it. And I'm constantly thinking about what will be the next iteration of innovation that we're going to have to adapt to as journalists, but more so that society will grow into. And I think more and more that challenge is looking like artificial intelligence. But I think we need to be in a position where we embrace the current tides of the moment, but always look to where the winds are going in the future. But like I said, at the very core of it, I think our practice should remain the same in a lot of ways, and the way we gather is just the way we present it is now in an Instagram reel instead of a printed newspaper.
C'est doucement c'est. C'est doucement c'est. No, it is very interesting to think about how you're right that in the it is interesting that in this world in which kind of we have we have to kind of rely more and more on sort of these big anonymous things in which like a big tech sort of financial networks for all of these things to kind of that make the world run. There is, I like the way that you put it, there is this increasing drive by people to get their news from a more like at least on the face of it, an individuated sort of source that it's not sort of like a news agency, a news institution, right? Because people have this increasing distrust of institutions, but that sort of having it come from somebody who can kind of who they feel like they can have like that connection to that endears them more and that kind of makes them more that's an interesting sort of thing to bring into this conversation then about why having I hadn't made that connection but it does um yeah
Yeah, and I love it for this community in a lot of ways, right? Because and and the community does this with me, right? They can call Tomas up, right? They can call X reporter up and say, "Hey, that was wrong. Correct it," right? Or here's more context that you need to include, and I love it. But I think at the micro level, at the macro level, right? What does that mean, right? When we are basically breaking down that institution and have so many voices which at this moment in time might not agree on the same set of facts, right? And so when an event happens, right, let's say even if it's a natural disaster, where do people first go to see if there really is a warning that you need to evacuate or not, right? But so I think, in other words, it is a fragmented media environment, Uh, but I guess we won't know the true impact until we're out of it, right? That's the thing with these different phenomena is that you don't understand what it means until it's over. But I think for local journalism, it's great to have voices you can go to because I talk about all the time, right? On the media side, we talk about holding power to account, making sure we fact check others. Well, us as an institution need that too, right? These days is especially in a local context where the relationships are sensitive. Who's fact checking us? Who's holding us to account? And I love that part, especially of Marianas Press, where the distance between the broadcaster and the individual audience member is more intimate, right? I think that makes for better reporting and is just our local way, right, of information.
Mm. No, no, c'est doucement c'est. C'est doucement c'est. Uh, yeah, it's I'm intrigued because it is intriguing for me sort of as a researcher, as somebody who works in the museum because like for so long it's just it's the new Superman movie came out. And of course Superman as somebody who works for a newspaper. Somebody who, but it was so interesting that in the new Superman movie, of course, they're rushing to kind of get the story online and get it out on the internet this time, as opposed to in the papers. And so I found that to be an interesting, of course, necessary evolution for that. But um, but it did in this conversation about sort of the media, though, it's I wanted to also because you were talking about sort of fact checking accuracy. One of the things that recently, in the CNMI, of course, there was the anniversary of Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and there was memorials in Tinian. And so I attended online a solidarity memorial with activists, anti-nuclear activists from different places in the world, different peace groups, and so on. And one of the things that was discussed is, of course, that similar to how those who experienced in the Marianas the what happened during the war, we lose more and more of them every year. Those hibakusha, those who experienced the attacks in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those who experienced it directly will soon, they die every year. And more of those radiation survivors die every year. And so one of the things that was discussed is, you know, um, when all of them have died, how will you tell the story, especially in a world in which, if enough, couldn't somebody make AI videos that say that the United States dropped unicorns on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And what if people in the United States just want to believe that they dropped rainbows and unicorns instead of that? And it was something which I think a little while ago people might have thought that that was a ridiculous thing to believe. But nowadays, with how quickly something can spread that's false, as the quote from Maria Ressa that you mentioned, something that's AI generated, something that's that if it matches the assumptions that people have, even some of the prejudices that people have, some of the things that people would prefer to believe as opposed to the truth. And so, as a journalist, I wanted to hear kind of your thoughts, as somebody who might see misinformation. And, we may not get a lot of it in the Marianas yet, but I know that in larger media markets, there's already quite a lot of it. Whether Donald Trump sharing AI generated videos of Barack Obama getting arrested in the Oval Office, or, all sorts of stuff like that. And so I wanted to hear kind of in this discussion about that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and this is where before you would have to go directly to the news sites to get the information. There was that gatekeeping mechanism, which is direct to the source. But now, mis and disinformation spread, like wildfire, more than the truth does, right? And what is misinformation, right? things maybe inadvertently shared that are wrong, and disinformation you intentionally share wrong information for whatever reason you might have. Um, but I think that question definitely is, I see it also as a policy question. I mean, us in the journalism space can do as much as we want to make sure that we do our job. But compared to the power of the social media engine and giants of the internet, it will really require solutions from the tech industry and social media industry, right? There's debates about moderation, free speech. There's debates around what's allowed, what's not allowed. I know there are long-standing debates about even how old someone should be before they can create a social media account. And so I think it's a larger question for our society about what they want, and what fears they have, and whether that's achieved through policy or you know social movement. I don't know, but that's we can do as much as we can to label content. I've heard different proposals and studies about we should label our news like how we label our food. This is 100% opinion, right? Like before you even go in, you know that what you're gonna digest is 100% opinion. But then we get into the talks about regulation, and then that raises the alarms from all the First Amendment protectors about now, unlike other countries in the United States, anyone can just say you're a journalist, right? You don't need a certificate or a credential. It's not like becoming a lawyer where you need to pass the bar, and and that's the beauty and curse of the First Amendment. You have to allow not bad speech because you have to allow the best speech as well, right? And whatever that means to you as an individual. So I think the questions about AI really are a conversation, uh, is really a conversation for the community to have with those who control, the platforms that we're on. And yeah, so that's my long-winded answer of saying I really don't know, but I do know that we can try our best as journalists, but at the end of the day, the gatekeeping powers have been torn away from the institution. We no longer hold the keys to the gates of information. It is the social media and tech world, so that's for them to handle.
Oh, Sidus Masi. Sidus Masi. I think we will encounter this issue more and more, especially as elections, as we will see more and more as
Yeah,
elections come up and as it becomes a tool for, because even on social media recently, because there'll be a gubernatorial election in Guam next year, and now the politics are coming out with as different campaigns start to send out their kind of representatives on social media to start the attacks, and so we'll see kind of what role AI plays this time. It's played a muted role in the past, but I wonder, like, I'm intrigued to see kind of
yeah, and this AI thing, we just recently experienced it with the tsunami warning. There was some sort of AI generated announcement or photo of an announcement that had to do with distribution of food aid or something like that, and the
Mhm.
governor's office had to release a rumor control thing. But I mean, are we gonna? Can we? Do we have the capacity to play whack-a-mole with this type of stuff? I don't think so, right? I mean, but I will say this: if it comes from Mariana's Press, you can be sure that it came from a human and that it was fact checked. So, go to your trusted sources, whatever that is for you, and learn about the source and just and what they're known for. And so we try our very best to make sure that when people come to our pages, that they know that what they're getting is news, and it's not AI. So if it's not coming from us, then it's not from us.
Oh, Biba, Sidus Masen. Let's get into Marianas Press and some of the logistical stuff there a little bit. Actually, I wanted to show for those of you who want to know a little bit more, you can follow, of course. There's Marianas Press. They have a website where you can follow. I'll put some links sort of onto the different places where we are streaming live, so you can follow them. Um, got plenty of news. follow them on Instagram, on Facebook. And so one of the things that I do want to ask you though, because I think this is one of the big questions that newer media kind of has to tackle is, if you're the older established media, it's really just you're running in the red, you're losing money because you can't sustain because you're huge and massive. But for newer media, kind of what are the logistical challenges that you have? Like because you have because some newer media, for example, is just one person, but you've mentioned that you have a team. You've got a few people from the newspaper that closed. And so what are some of the challenges technologically, resource based, like what are some of the challenges that you have with Marianas Press, specifically being sort of newer and smaller media?
Yeah, I think right now, of course, we're just trying to scale up capacity. Um, and the story of this era right now, the CNMI, is our economy. And so, what are the first things that people cut in a business when the economy is down and you're running in the red? It's probably your ad budget, right? And so, of course, I want to thank all our supporters and advertisers and contributors for supporting this mission and seeing Marianas Press as a worthy investment, one that is rooted in home and rooted, and in uh, being good storytellers. And so, of course, the finances and the economics of it all is always, going to be an issue until the entire CNMI recovers from the economic downturn. Um, and and I mean, I love my team. I think that's why we also work so well. Is we have great chemistry and we have trust in each other, and everyone works on the same set of values. And so I know that whether it's Mark, Lay, or Crystal, that the product I'm receiving is in fact true, can be verified, and that they put in a lot of work to make into the product. Um, and so when I think more long term, I am concerned about the future of the industry. Just like any other industry right now in the Marianas or just the world, we're struggling to have future workers, right? Future journalists. Behind the scenes, I'm also working at the Northern Marianas College. We're just about to start school again next week, or it'll be my fifth semester teaching. I teach a class called Current Issues, um, but I'm also trying to create a media program that will hopefully funnel some folks into this way, right? Because we need people in the industry. I mean, that is it, right? But how do we compete with wages in other industries or opportunities outside of the Marianas? I mean, is it attractive enough? Do we have enough people who might want to pursue this as public service? Because at the end of the day, that's really what journalism is. I've never heard anyone become a journalist to be rich. I don't know many rich journalists myself. Let me know if you know any. But you know, yeah, I think that ultimately is going to be the long term issue, which is, I remind people that journalism is just like any other industry. We're not insulated from the issues outside, right? We have we need more nurses, we need more hospitality, we need more journalists too, we need more police, whatever it is, right? We also share those. We live in the same world as everyone else. So yeah, that's the major challenge, I think, is I
Mm.
think bettering the wages, increasing capacity, and just having people be interested. Yeah.
No, si Diyos masinay and mention no. I think especially in some of the larger conversations that are happening in the United States, but then they're trickling to Guam in the budget conversations that are happening right now. I don't know if they've made it to the into the CNMI, but some of the leaders, not a lot of them, but some of our elected leaders are saying that money, similar to the Doge conversations, the Trump cuts in the States, they're saying that money from the government, from taxpayers, shouldn't go to fund women's programs, shouldn't go to fund Chamorro programs, culture programs, or anything that's not like education or public safety or anything like that. And it's when you were talking there, I was reminded that we're we're kind of moving in this direction where people kind of don't people are living in a world and they don't understand kind of what it takes to maintain the world or improve the world. Like you need journalists. Like you may it may be easier to listen to somebody who says, "Oh, the press is lying to you," or "the lying press," or "the mainstream media," blah blah blah. It may make you feel good to just think to believe those things if your favorite politician just tells you those things. But functioning democracies, good, healthy democracies need people who want to investigate, who want to call out politicians, who want to find out the problems in a society. And those people, sometimes people might be they might be like you, where they feel it as a young child, they feel that calling, and they're probably going to be a journalist no matter what. But you also have to encourage and shape and educate and entice people to take on that role. And what I see happening in so many ways, and is kind of that all of these things that are really important to quality of life, to improving life. A lot of people don't realize how essential they are. They're kind of stuck in this mindset that oh, we don't need those things. It's like, no, if you want your government to be good, you need journalists. It's not like you shouldn't have oh, good, we don't need newspapers, we need police. No, you need police, but you also need journalists to ask questions about what the police are doing. And so thank you for kind of reminding us that even if the economy is in a downturn, that doesn't mean then that media needs to go away because you can't afford these things. You still need the public to be notified. You still need the public to be informed. You still need questions to be asked. And so I always get very frustrated when people say, "Oh, things aren't great. We can't afford things. We can't do things." Well, what are you talking about? We still need things. We still need to take care of our islands. We still need to take care of problems. And so, yeah, it's good. When things are bad, that doesn't mean you throw away everything. And in fact, I find that what we when we look sort of towards the United States, we see that that kind of rhetoric, people in power, powerful people use that to their advantage. Get rid of all of these types of people, remove these programs, remove this way of thinking, and then there's less accountability. There's less people asking questions. And so, but oh, I do have a oh man, we only have like 12 minutes left. Now, there have been a few people that have sent in questions. And so we do have a few more questions, but a few people have actually sent in questions and they do want to know your take about, because you were just mentioning this about the CNMI's economy. What are your thoughts on kind of the economy? Where is it heading? Is there bright spots? Is it just kind of doom and gloom? Are there bright spots? Do you have any insights that you want to share?
I can just share what we've been reporting, which is my job. I'm not an analyst. I make it a point not to share my opinion because, frankly, it doesn't matter when I'm covering these issues, and I'm simply the messenger. Um, but right now, a lot of the conversations are, of course, about how to bring back tourism. Tourism from anywhere really, and as you well know, and your audience who follow you will know this, is there's a buildup happening, right? Where Tinian has their divert airfield, and they're rehabilitating Northfield, just where I was at just a few days ago for the commemoration of the 80th atomic bomb bombings, and so I think that's the major question everyone has: is where are we headed, and how do we get out of the hole that we're in? And it remains to be seen. The CNMI has what we call 902 talks, which comes out of our covenant. Essentially, talks with the White House to negotiate certain items. Certainly, the economy is at the top of the list. And so, I think people are looking at what can we do now with tourism? How do we engage other markets and airlines? Secondly, um, how do we engage with the federal government? And thirdly, what does the military buildup mean for us, and how does the community, quote unquote, benefit, um, at least through dollar amounts? And so that's the bird's eye view of it. My opinion of it, I will say, frankly, doesn't matter. I'm not a lawmaker. I cover these issues, but I will surely be asking follow-ups and questions. The late Governor Arnold Palacios did just passed away, and there's transitions of leadership, and so we're going to see how some of those voices shape the next at least year when it comes to our economy, with some of the negotiations happening right now.
No, Tidus Masi. Tidus Masi. And one question that I did want to ask you, because, what we find, and the Marianas in particular, compared to most places in the United States, because it's in many places in the United States, they experience this as what they call like the company town. There is a corporation, or there is some entity which the company, which the town relies on for its economic vitality. So therefore, the local government, sort of the local community, doesn't ask questions, or they give a pass, less accountability for them because they need the jobs. They need whatever that sort of entity, that big corporation, that big company, the railroad, the mine, whatever it is, let them do it because we need the jobs to survive. In the Marianas, sort of the company, the corporation, the entity is in many ways Department of Defense, that they have such a big outsized role here. They bring in huge amounts of money, and the CNMI, as you were mentioning, is going to see like a big windfall compared to times past with new development there. But one of the things that journalists run into, though, is how do you navigate sort of impacts to community, impacts to environment, versus sort of feeling like that, that because oftentimes leaders feel that pressure too, that, oh, we need this buildup, we need the Department of Defense, we shouldn't ask these questions, we shouldn't challenge them, because then they're not going to put their missiles here, they're not going to put their Marines here, and then we'll get less money. And so, sir, for you as an independent journalist, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how can you manage those sorts of interests, the public interest, to kind of know what the buildup might mean in terms of impacts, in terms of what it might bring into the community, while also balancing out sort of possible benefits? What are your thoughts?
We ask. That's our job. We've got to ask. And if we're not asking, we're not doing our job. Thankfully, we've gotten the chance to interview, and actually, even during the EIS public hearings, Marianas Press, myself, along with Mark Robigo, we traveled to Saipan, Tinian, and Rhoda for those meetings, because I personally saw, and I believe it's our duty as Marianas Press to go to each of these meetings and document what the military is saying, what the government's saying, and what the residents are saying. And so we did that. We live streamed all of the meetings. We published interviews. If you go on our website, marianaspress.com, under special projects, there's a tab called On Defense. That's all of our coverage on the buildup that's happening. I do want to say that the Commonwealth also has a Commonwealth Bureau of Military Affairs, which is led by Special Assistant Ed Camacho, and his job is to be that liaison as well. And he's been very open to giving us the information that the public has the right to know, and we've been able to interview some of those military leaders as well. And so we'll continue doing that. Again, our job here is not to tell you what necessarily, not what to think, but show you maybe what you should be thinking about, right? And the range of that. And so to me, the job is easy, and I am more than willing to, sometimes feel free to shoot the messenger, and that's part of the territory. But as long as I know that I'm asking my question respectfully, professionally, and something that's rooted in facts or concerns from the community, I'll always ask the question. Whether or not I get invited to the next press conference is not up to me, but I don't mind at all. Again, in a very professional way, to press and ask the questions, because I always say, if you can't take a few questions from little me with my, then then that says a lot, because you should be able to answer questions from everyone, especially if you're doing it, you know in such a big way, that has to deal with public resources. So
C'est justement ça.
yeah.
And I want to ask now, because we're almost out of time, but I wanted to take a moment real quickly. Since you started Marianas Press, is there any story that stands out as kind of a favorite of yours that you've done, or something that you're really proud of? Because sometimes when you work for larger media, you don't get to do all the stories that you want to do, or you don't get to, pursue everything. But is there something in particular that, given the freedom that you have now as a more independent media company, that you were able to cover? Anything stand out?
uh it's like asking me to pick my favorite child. But I would say the one thing that I really love that we've made a commitment to is to cover Rota and Tinian and the Northern Islands a little more. We haven't gotten the chance to go there as Marianas Press. We try to interview Mayor Valentino Teskin when we can from the Northern Islands, but I love just being able to say, okay, let's try to go to Rota next week or next month. Let's budget for that, and let's just plan for what that's going to look like. Let's go to Tinian. And it's outside of these big events, right? We had a lot of media go to Tinian for the 80th anniversary. Okay, what happens after that? Are we coming back? Like, outside of the ceremony and the speeches and the very sanitized representation of things, I want to just kind of drop in and be there on a regular day, right? Outside of all the fanfare. And so, my answer to you is, just being able to go to Rota, Tinian, and hopefully one day the Northern Islands with Marianas Press, and just really reflect, right, what our society is going through and what the people are experiencing and what they care about. Also, their triumphs and successes. That's one thing we try to cover, is the good news too, right? And that's one thing that I've gotten from our viewers, is that they like that we do good news. Because when you're going through your different media websites, maybe it's all court and crime and terror on the front page, but with us, you'll find some bright spots. We try to interview people doing good things and good projects that benefits, the CNMI. And so, we want to be, we have a holistic health segment, we have a sports segment. So we're trying to be wide ranging and not just always give you hard, straight news, even though that's really critical. But I would say, yeah, one of my favorite things is being able to just say, okay, let's go to these other islands, let's make it happen, and yeah, that's the mindset we have, is how do we make it happen. So
Oh, Biba. And I want to give you a chance now, hanggang sa esta matu'y ora. I want to give you a chance now to share any final thoughts, any final shout outs that you have, um, or any plugs
yeah,
that you have,
yeah,
before we end this episode.
sure. I just want to give a shout out to my girlfriend, Kay Andrea, who's been a really great supporter. Doing this startup means that I'm pretty much working around the clock, and she's so supportive. She's a former journalist herself. I don't want to share too much. I don't want to get in trouble, but she's been such a great supporter, and my family as well, and really the people of the CNMI, who followed me ever since I was a little kid on Rhoda writing for my blog. And so, I'm so grateful to come home, because this wouldn't mean a thing without community support, right? This isn't Tomas Mangloña's website. This is, hopefully a resource and building for the community. And just one last quick plug. I know we have 1 minute left. if you're a young journalist out there listening to this, hell, even if you're not a young journalist, if you want to be a journalist and you turn 60 this year and you want to be a journalist, reach out to me. My WhatsApp number is 670-484-5998. That number is on the website, so you can find it there too. Um, and reach out to me if you have any interest, even in contributing to Mariana's Press. Maybe you wrote this piece and you don't know where it should go. Send it my way. My email is tomas.mangloña@marianaspress.com. I really want to connect with more people interested in doing this work and hopefully, help each other do what we want to do. So thanks so much.
Y de si dus masi, de gov bonito esti conversation. Si dus masi, Tomas, thank you for all that you are doing in terms of covering news in the Marianas. And especially, I love that, you are making sure that it's not Guam, that, because of course, news out of the Marianas can be way too Guam centric, and then it can be very Saipan centric. And so I'm glad that you are, emphasizing the other islands as well, Gofudzahuano. But I appreciate Huagradesiana. I appreciate you coming on and talking about Marianas Press. It's been exciting to see it grow. And just yeah, I'm hoping that more as the media landscape continues to change and as more sort of traditional media as it cannot evolve, it cannot sustain, I'm hoping that others kind of learn from your example, that like come develop a more community-based approach to this. Like if kind of the old guard can't stick around, then that's okay. We don't need to cry, and we shouldn't then just kind of give up and say, well, I guess hey Todd's a gasetta or oh Todd's it's just I guess we just listen to the telephone alay now. But no, we can build, and sort of Marianas Press is a great example of that. And so, si Diyos masinu hagod, and si Diyos masinu todos hamso, put in egad, and in e kung episode